But technically, Firefly Shimmer is a lot more superior than Firefly v1.7. Then you just always ask yourself, what would the wallet Jesus do?
Whether Firefly starts offering tokens or something like that.
I'm not going to.
Yo, and welcome back to another episode of IOTA Poet. Today we have a very special episode because we've got an IOTA Foundation member on the channel. Today we have David Troch. That's right, is it David? Troch?
Yeah, it's a bit difficult. It's the Troch, but the Troch is okay.
Great. David is a software engineer from the IOTA Foundation, and he mainly works on the Firefly team. David, great to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. It's been a busy day and a busy last week, but for now the coding is over.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're going to be getting on that soon in terms of what you've been very busy with. But there's one question I want to ask before we dive any further into this, and it's probably the most important question of this episode. Are the rumors true that Charlie is the wallet Jesus?
I think it is. I always, I'm a true follower of Charlie, so I always react with the wallet Jesus emoji.
Yeah.
So I think that makes him the wallet Jesus.
I think we can all agree. I would certainly follow that religion if it was on the consensus paper, yeah.
Then you just always ask yourself, what would the wallet Jesus do?
Exactly. I'm sure that is that on the wall in the Firefly team.
Yes, definitely. For my wallpaper.
Yeah, I mean, do you just want to let us know how you got into IOTA?
Oh, so that's a long story. It started in 2017 when I was still at the university, and I did this management course. It was an elective. I wanted some easy credits, but then we had to pick a presentation on something related to industry of things, and at that time, IOTA had this big partnership with Bosch. And since I was starting to get into the crypto scene, I wanted to talk a bit about that because that was one of the only cryptos that had some kind of industry of the Internet of Things use case. And that's actually how I got to know IOTA. And then I started following it. I bought a bit, then I sold it again, and then I bought it again a bit. So I lost track of the foundation IOTA for quite a while. So I entirely missed this whole episode with CSB and whatnot. So for me, it never went. I never understood why there was such a big decline. But I think now, since I've joined, I haven't seen any negativity, and I also think it's a great place to work at.
Yeah, because how big is the Firefly team?
The Firefly team currently consists of 8 developers plus Charlie. Charlie is not doing that much active coding because he has a lot of his plate with the spin-off. But otherwise, we're also supported, of course, by designers and by the Wallet RS team who provides us the backend, and they are with the 4.
Do you have like different tasks within the team? How do you split the responsibilities there?
So mainly there are, I would say, 2 teams within Firefly. One is the mobile team and the other one is the desktop team, who is mainly responsible for developing the new features of Firefly Shimmer. Whereas the mobile team is trying to catch up with what desktop does and trying to release mobile alpha soonish. And then both teams are supported equally by design and Wallet RS.
So there is that split between, and I want to get onto the mobile alpha soon because I know you probably get a lot of comments, or Charlie does anyways, on that. In fact, let's just talk about that now. So how is the mobile alpha coming along?
I think it's going good. There were some major roadblocks with how the backend interacted with the front end, and I remember that even at the time I joined, we started working on that with the desktop app, and that took quite a while because until you get the communication working between 2 entirely different programming languages, that's quite difficult, especially if it's something as sensitive as a crypto wallet. Fortunately, the team has found a workaround to, in the intermediate time, develop the front end using the desktop app. But still, some more work needs to be done to get this interface ready. But I expect it to be the last PR or the PR that starts kicking off everything to be merged like somewhere next week or the week after. So then the front end is almost there, and then there's nothing else that should block first the development and the first release of mobile alpha. So of course I'm not going to give any ETAs because that's not too good if it hasn't been proven good in the past.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So in summary, there was a major roadblock, but we seem to have got around that now, and in the coming soon, we might see some more action.
Yes, and the PR was quite big, and a lot of eyes are looking at it because it's so sensitive, but it's done and it's being already in the process of being reviewed. So it's not the development work has been done. We just need to ensure that everything works as expected.
How do you envisage the mobile app working compared to, say, the desktop? Like, who do you think is going to use the mobile over the desktop?
I think mobile will find a great reach. Well, it might even have a bigger potential, right? Because everybody has a mobile phone, but not everybody has a desktop.
Yeah.
So I think the more retail user will use a mobile app, since it's very convenient to have the payment set up on your phone. I read somewhere a report that crypto usage is going to increase in sub-Sahara, or is increasing the fastest in sub-Saharan Africa. So maybe that would be a target audience we could try to aim at, especially since they are already very familiar with mobile money. Or I think also the existing user base of IOTA might use it. And I also hope that some people that haven't managed to claim their Shimmer through the desktop app will have like a second shot and see how that would work on the mobile.
Okay, because can you still claim?
Everybody can still claim, but we have seen some reports. I hope that we can fix it as soon as possible. But maybe since it's an entirely different platform, it might be that for some reason, for some edge cases, it would work better on mobile.
Yeah, as you say, everybody uses mobiles, and these days, you have your banking apps on there. You use like Monzo or Revolut or whatever. So I can certainly see how that would really increase usage of IOTA. So I think it's really exciting that it's finally becoming around the corner.
Yeah, I'm also excited to see that coming.
Yeah, actually, a point that's close to my heart now is the Ledger, because obviously you've got Ledger support on the desktop, but not for the Firefly app at the moment. Now, I understand from Antonio, and he goes to great pains in the spec and Discord chat to point this out, but is that currently sitting with Ledger?
Yes, and it has been for a long time. So we asked them to review the Shimmer app, and what they did was they by accident reviewed the IOTA app, as far as I'm aware. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is what I understood. And then it took a longer time to get the review done because they had also some big release coming out, which they were working diligently on. And then now we have the review. There were some minor things that we had to change. And now for the last 2 weeks, it's been sitting in their ball camp again. But I'm not going to be dissatisfied with it because we're also not giving ETA, so we should also not expect other people to do it, as long as it impacts the security of the whole app, as I think it does.
Just for the audience, you can use it at the moment, but it's some sort of untested. Is it untested app or something? Is it some beta?
It's not untested. It's not untested. It's just not officially approved.
Yeah, officially approved.
So how this works is that we write an app, and they put it. You can put it inside the Ledger Live Manager so that you can install it. But as long as it's not officially approved, you can only find it under developer tools. And there is the first screen of the Ledger app says pending Ledger review, which goes away once they officially verified it, but you can actually just click through it. So if you have a bit of confidence in the foundation, and then you should be using it. And many people have, and I haven't seen any issues with it.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a Ledger, but I don't use it yet. I'm waiting, but I haven't seen any issues with it. But obviously, proceed at your own risk.
Exactly. I've been using it, I can say that.
Okay. Well, there we go. A Firefly member's even been using it. And this is a question I've actually always wondered about Firefly. You've obviously got the Ledger support, but what about Trezor and stuff like that? How comes that never came about? Is that harder to get or something?
I think Ledger is it was one of the first to get out, and it's one of the most widely available apps. And at the moment, our priorities are not with supporting more hardware tokens. Our priorities are with making Firefly more feature complete. But sooner or later, we also have to think about other apps. But we cannot also continue supporting all the hardware tokens. We need to wait until some generic way arrives or some accepted standard, because once you go down the road, let's support Trezor, and then you have other hardware signers that come around, and it gets into a rabbit hole, I think. So we're also waiting a bit for the whole space to standardize itself around one approach.
Yeah, I must admit, Ledger's used way more than Trezor from what I've seen, but I was just why.
I've also seen multiple Ledgers, but I've never seen a Trezor in my life.
Yeah, same. Who uses this?
Yeah. No, I'm sure it's good, but I just haven't seen any.
I mean, do you envisage a future where you'll even be able to access DeFi Web3 apps through the mobile app?
I think sooner or later that has to come, because otherwise you're just gonna have the same situation where the IoT ecosystem was supposed to be left behind if they would not have smart contracts or layer 2 integrations. And since they have come to the realization that IoT needs it, I think it's the same with a mobile wallet. Like, you cannot just stay a payments only app, because then you will be outcompeted and you will not have you cannot leverage all these Web3 and DeFi use cases. But the problem is that Web3 is quite complex, so it's difficult to show the user on a very small screen what's happening, especially if you need some tooltips or additional explanation. Web3 or a general DeFi app will become bloated very, very quickly if you try to offer the user the whole experience. So it's a really difficult design choice or design task to make this as seamless as possible. But the future is mobile, right? So I think we will see that definitely coming to Firefly sooner.
Imagine trying to enter staking pools or whatever, and monitoring all the different staking pools you're on. It'll get quite complicated on your phone. But I imagine viewing NFT, like an NFT wallet on your phone, that would be a great use. You know, people can walk around and just look at their NFTs all day long, if that's what they want to do. And I'm sure there's some of you DGens in the audience that would do that.
With regard to NFTs, I think that's gonna come almost together with the mobile alpha release, since we're now talking about layer 1, and layer 1 will definitely be supported entirely by the mobile app. When you mentioned Web3 and DeFi, I was talking more about support for smart contracts, or such things that we even do not see in desktop yet. But for us, it's easy to develop first the features in desktop and then port it to mobile.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Is it going to be Android and iOS?
Yes. So we are completing the bindings so that basically you have a part written in Swift and another part written in the Swift for iOS and Java for Android. But it's only this bridge that is written in those separate languages. Everything else is common for two apps, which means that once we have this bridge between the backend and the front end built, with very little maintenance, you can just develop an app that works for both iOS and Android. So you do not need to separate these environments after you initially launch the app.
Oh, great. So it seems like a lot of the hard work's up front, but once you get that out of the way, it should ease up a little bit at least.
Exactly, and that's the same thing that we've seen with desktop. We've never developed the app separately for Windows, Mac OS, or Linux. We've always done all the three platforms together, but for some parts of the processes are different, like the building and the packaging of an app. So once that work is done, you can very quickly iterate on it and develop apps that work on all platforms.
Great. And just to move slightly on from the mobile app, what's the timeline like for Shimmer?
For the Firefly Shimmer app, you mean?
Yeah.
So currently we're testing governance and full NFT support for it has gone into an alpha testing. We're closing very soon to a beta test. I think it will come out the next week or so. And then once that's in beta production, we will test it and see whether there are major bugs or whether the users have some feedback that we can incorporate into the app. And then we will spend some time fixing the issues that users came up with. Although a huge shout out to the alpha testers, because they already have been a huge help and we caught a lot of things, and I hope that the bugs will be very minor that the beta testers will catch. But once that has been tested thoroughly, we can go on with the production release, and then you have full NFT support and governance on the Shimmer mainnet.
Great. And that's in the Shimmer wallet, because there's two wallets at the moment, isn't there? There's the main Firefly and there's the Shimmer.
Yeah, exactly. So with Shimmer, we had basically the opportunity to do everything from the ground up, and we've done so much progress. The app's been, the whole environment is now such a nice place to work in. Everything is modular. It's very easy to navigate around. It's very easy to add new features. Whereas when I started with the previous app, with the Firefly version 1.7, it's so much more difficult to build something. So I'm really happy we went down the road of two apps. I know that it's, from a user point of view, it's a bit complicated to understand, but technically Firefly Shimmer is a lot more superior than Firefly v 1.7. And once we have these governance and NFT support out, we will start the next phase, which will be trying to integrate or starting to design the integration of Stardust into IOTA. And then we will also have to find a solution on how to get support for two different protocols at a different stage of maturation into one app. Yeah. It's not going to be easy, but I'm sure we will find a nice way to do it. It will take some time. And then also parallel, I think we will start kicking off layer 2 support.
So by NFT support, what does that actually mean for the user? Does that mean you can like view your NFTs in the app?
Exactly. So initially what it will mean is that you can view your NFTs in the app, you can send them, and you can also see some nice details about them, especially if they support the ERC27 format. And then there will be some other improvements such as caching later that will come. But some of the newer parts or newer features will require an audit. So that, of course, that prolongs the time until it is released.
The foundational features, have they been audited already or?
Yes, so the Firefly Shimmer app has been audited.
Yeah.
The governance part hasn't been, but since basically governance relies entirely on basic outputs, which are just a certain kind of transactions that have been audited, I don't think there is a big security risk over to be found there. But then when you start pulling in data from the outside world, such as is the case with NFTs, because those JPEGs could come from anywhere, then you have to take a bit of a closer look and take care on how things work.
Now, I'm sure the audience will want to know about the Firefly spin-off, because obviously that was quite big news. Was it late last year that there was going to be this spinning off of various IF arms or parts of the IF? Can you just tell us how that's going?
I think it's going great. We're currently approaching some investors, and everyone is quite excited by Firefly. So I'm very confident about our future, and I'm not worried. But more than that, I think it's a bit too confidential.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of NDAs going on behind the scenes. So,
Exactly.
but I mean, it's good that being progress on that, it seems, in terms of the funders, investors, and stuff.
Yeah, I guess we will see something coming out of that by the end of Q1.
Can you answer whether you're going to go like multi-chain or anything like that? Or is that still NDA?
That's something we're definitely very interested in doing. But first of all, we have to see that we support the Shimmer EVM. Having said that, the Shimmer EVM is an EVM chain. So that means that once we have a full support for layer 2, it will become a lot easier to extend to other EVM chains. And we're definitely interested in doing that. But of course, we don't want to leave behind the IOTA ecosystem, because we very much believe that it's one of the technically more advanced DLTs, and we want to commit to supporting.
Yeah, because we've seen Lendex do that recently, where they transitioned as well into the Ethereum chain. I presume because they'd already set up for the EVM.
Yeah, I think that's an easy way to attract more users. And I think it's also, if we would support EVM change, I think it's also a very good way to attract more people into the ecosystem, because it will be very convenient to have one wallet for multiple assets. You don't have to switch between wallets. You don't have to trust custodians with providing support for all of those different coins. You can just hold them yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, spoiler, but I had Lendex on the channel a week or so ago. The video might or might not be out yet, but they discussed something similar where, and I agreed with them that at the end of the day, it's actually, if you have these major dApps or projects on IOTA and they break out the bubble, then I think that's actually a good thing, because it's got potential to attract new people from new ecosystems, because that's what ultimately IOTA needs really to get mass adopted. We can't just live inside our own little bubble forever. We need to expand out and bring new users in and show the great tech that's on hand.
Exactly, and I think Firefly is a great key in the whole process, because I haven't seen that much wallets that I like as much as I do Firefly, and I use a couple of them. I also tested around them just to see how they solve other issues.
What other wallets do you look at and think that's a really good wallet?
I like Kepler from Cosmos. I also played around a bit with Exodus, although I'm not that huge fan of it, because I think the functionality is limited. I think what is an interesting comparison for us is Ledger Live, although that's not technically a wallet. They provide a whole interface in the Ledger app, and they do a lot of things very good, because you have integrations for all these different apps directly inside the Ledger Live app. So I think also that's the main direction we want to go to, having a lot of features inside your app. And then one thing that Ledger doesn't do that well, I think, is provide software support. Like, what if you don't have a Ledger? Then basically you're shut out of the Ledger Live applications, whereas we also try to make software as secure as possible. So we don't want to bar people that do not have a ledger out of Firefly.
Yeah, so anyone can use it. And it'll be great to see, as you said, like the layer 2 support, and if we can build up the ecosystem there. Firefly, for me, I'd just love to be like the gateway into the IOTA ecosystem in a way.
Exactly. I think one thing that is still missing to do that is a fiat on and off ramp. So I'm also curious to see how that will go. There are also definitely plans to do that sooner or later. And then people do not have to rely on external parties to get their IOTA. They can just do straight away everything in Firefly.
Yeah, then we won't need Coinbase.
Exactly.
We're not there at all. No, yeah, I imagine it's like, it'll be like Narnia, where I'm sure my age here, where you go through the wardrobe and you just transport into this different universe of, dApps and IOTA bots and all this other stuff that's going on behind there.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very nice way of looking at it.
Maybe that's a very romantic way to look at it, but I'm sure it'll be good either way. I mean, how do you see Firefly evolving over the next couple of years then?
I think it's going to be more stable because we're still a group of 8. So next to developing features, we really need to spend more time on quality assurance. We also would like to have some more freedom over what we develop, and I hope with the spin-off we are able to get that freedom. And yeah, otherwise I think we just need to grow a bit bigger so that we can handle these bigger tasks. Also, integrating other EVM chains, it's easy once we have Shimmer EVM, but it's still a lot of maintenance burden that we have. And especially the more features we add, the larger that burden becomes. So the more people we will need on that front. And
Yeah.
again, we're just starting as a company, so we need to see how we grow.
Yeah, I imagine the team's quite diverse. Is it all over the world?
It's all over. I think most of the people are in Europe, although we have a guy in Brazil. There is 2 people in the United States. There used to be someone in Argentina, but they also moved to Europe. But we don't have anyone from Asia or to the east of Europe.
Okay. Well, I suppose time differences might make that a bit harder as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I also don't think we will expand into Asia very soon, because even now, with having the American and the European time zones, it already gets difficult.
Yeah.
Although it also has advantages that if I don't manage to finish something, or if I review something, or if there is any accident, then there is always somebody to pick it up.
Yeah, well, that's true, actually. Yeah, if you got, yeah, exactly. You can just email them. Sorry, I'm finished for the day. Can you guys deal with this? But yeah, no, in my own work, I've come across it where, you're just finishing work and you're dealing with, on a China deal or something, or Asia, and they're just coming online as you're going off, and that they expect stuff to be done for that day. So I imagine it can be, working as a team in that environment can be quite hard.
Yeah, and it's also a bit of pity that some teammates you cannot really interact that much with, because you only have like 1 or 2 hours of time overlap.
It'd be interesting to see, actually, now that you're technically going it alone, I suppose, with Firefly, even though you're going to have that strong connection there, whether Firefly starts offering tokens or something like that.
I'm not going to disclose anything about that.
Oh, okay. But yeah, that'd be interesting to see. In the crypto world, you always think project, offer a token, fundraise. But, I suppose it's not always the case.
For us now, it was a smarter move to approach it from a traditional point of view, because it's faster and we need to get it off the ground. But yeah, I mean, we're very much part of the whole Web3 ecosystem, and tokens are a big part of it. So let's see what the future brings.
Yeah, maybe like a governance token or something. Charlie, for listening, get that sorted. The wallet Jesus will make it be. Do you have interaction with the Shimmer team?
Not that much. We have the most interaction with Walters, who is the client libraries team. But we're not very much, or at least I am personally not very much involved with the Shimmer team. I know some of the more senior members of the team are, and then they can get feedback, or they have better connections with them. But personally, me, not so much.
Okay. And what are your thoughts on, wallets like TanglePay, for example?
I think it's very good that TanglePay is out there, because I don't believe in centralization. And I wouldn't want Firefly to be the only wallet in space, because otherwise there is no drive to being better or to provide some unique features. And I think what TanglePay does, to be honest, I don't use it, maybe I should use it more, just to see also how they approach things. But it also allows us to test interoperability between wallets. So I think we have a good connection with them. We discuss from time to time certain features. And yeah, it's a great way to stay competitive, and I hope there will be more wallets that come and support IOTA, because in the end that's only good for the IOTA ecosystem.
I think it makes even more sense now that I suppose Firefly's gone off on its own. There's going to be the IF is going to be less involved directly with the wallets in the ecosystem, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that also gives a sense of confidence for the community that this wallet is not part of the team that builds the whole network.
Yeah. Do you speak with Garrett at TanglePay at all, or does the team do anyways?
The team definitely does. Me personally, not so much.
Yeah.
But we have set up a channel between us where we discuss now and then some technicalities around handling outputs and bugs that arise between users that send from Firefly to TanglePay, because that's also one of the edge cases when you send between different wallets. Sometimes things can go wrong because one other handles the certain things a bit differently than the other, and that gives rise to bugs. But that's, I think, one of the main reasons of Shimmer network being there, right? To test these issues out so that when it gets to the mainnet, we don't have it anymore.
And it is really impressive actually how quickly they've scaled up their features in their DApp.
Yeah, I think they do really good work, and it goes very, very quickly. They have a good pace.
Yeah, so shout out to Garrett and the team.
Definitely.
How long have you been in Firefly for now?
I have been in Firefly for 1 year now.
And in your time there, what would you say is your biggest success that you've seen with Firefly, or something you're most pleased with?
I think now with governance is definitely one of the bigger successes that I've worked or I did contribute to.
Yeah.
Another one is layer 2 support, and also the whole fact of this Shimmer app that we did it so quickly. And because in the end it was a huge undertaking. I think we changed like 80,000 lines of code, so it was quite a big work.
One thing I get, I mean, I'm speaking as an outsider looking in, I get the impression that IOTA Foundation, the culture there is to make sure you get it right. And even if that means taking a little bit longer, but then you build the foundations that make it quicker in the future, you do that approach rather than rushing out stuff just to deliver something and then having to deal with it, the issues at a later stage.
Yeah, exactly. And Shimmer has been proven very valuable for that. And it's also, I think, necessary to have these incentivized testnets, they call them, to just get people interacting with the network, because the more interaction there is, the quicker we will find the bugs, or the quicker we can see that some approaches didn't work as we expected them to do. And then you can test the real life usage of a network, and that allows you also to improve the main network and see that, okay, yeah, maybe this didn't work as we expected it to work, so let's do it in a bit different way. And you're just a lot more certain about the security of the network.
Yeah, that's a really interesting angle. So I've never really thought about it this way until now, but I suppose, Shimmer could make Firefly evolve a lot quicker and improve quicker because there's going to be more usage.
Exactly. And not only Firefly, all the products that build on Shimmer have the same feature. Like you can now, all of these Shimmer EVM applications will start to get off the ground. They certainly, some will have some issues, and then they can learn from those issues when EVM comes to IOTA. And that was the whole point of Shimmer being there. That's for people to test it and to validate their features, and to not spend a lot of effort on something that will not work anyway, because it's still cheaper to do something on Shimmer than it is to do on IOTA.
Yeah, and I think that really hits to the point of, you see some community members question the use case of Shimmer when, technically you're going to port a lot of those to the mainnet within a year or two's time. But I suppose it's almost like a chicken and egg situation where we won't potentially even get to that with IOTA without going through Shimmer first, if you know what I mean. Like, we need to go for the battle test phase just to get it to IOTA. So there almost can't be DeFi on IOTA without this Shimmer network. There's like almost no other way of doing it, unless we want to wait like 3 or 4 years for it to be fully developed.
Exactly, and it just gives you basically two networks. One network, Shimmer, is there for the early adopters who wants things to go very quickly and wants to develop as soon as possible. But that's not the whole world. You also have part of the population that is just a bit more skeptic. And if you can prove them like, hey, we tested this on a network where real people are using it for real money and it works, and we waited for months to see it work, and then we improved upon it and we ported it to a more stable, more battle-tested network, then it just increases the confidence in IOTA so much, I think.
Exactly. And I feel there's so many more big innovations to come to IOTA that it's probably going to take another 10 years at least, really. So we're going to need a network in the time, as you say, to test it. So I really think Shimmer's got a long shelf life in terms of its value, because there's going to be some big features coming for the next 5 to 10 years, whatever happens.
Yeah, maybe it just appeals to users more to use Shimmer because they were there before, they like it more. Because it will be a bit different, it will have a bit of a different feel, but in the end, it's still as immutable as a blockchain, so it will stay there.
And do you have any projects you're excited about on Shimmer?
At the moment, I haven't kept that much up with layer 2 projects. I have been a bit in contact with TanglePay. I think those people are doing a great job. I'm very excited to see how Dexes will work and how that will hit the ground running. I think I used Sooniverse. I like the way they approach things as well, and I think they're also doing a great job. I haven't followed much up with the recent merge between IOTA B and Sooniverse, but I think that's also not a bad thing that they merge if they can manage to make the whole ecosystem bigger by that move.
Oh, I hadn't even realized they'd merged. There we go.
Yeah, I think it was three ecosystem projects. It was IOTA B, Sooniverse, and another one, but I forgot which was the third project that joined them. I'm also not 100% sure how this corporation manifests itself in real life, but I think it's only beneficial if these kind of mergers happen.
Yeah, respect to IOTA B, because for me, they seem to have come out of nowhere, and I'm sure they haven't. I'm sure they've been working hard behind the scenes, but I hadn't really heard of them until late last year. And then all of a sudden, I think they were posting the other day that they provide the most liquidity for Shimmer at the moment, or something of the sort. So they've obviously been working hard behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I think the same is true for Sooniverse because their interface is also very nice. Whenever I switched some tokens on Sooniverse, and that was a very seamless effort, and they integrated well with Firefly. So
congrats, Sooniverse. Spam those IOTA apes in the chat. Yeah, so I want to actually just quickly touch upon Stardust, because you mentioned, like, obviously this is further in the future, but what would integrating Stardust into Firefly entail or mean?
So it means that everything you have currently in Firefly Shimmer also comes available for the IOTA mainnet. It means that you have the storage deposit on IOTA. It means you have NFTs on IOTA. It means you have alias outputs, native tokens, whatever. Everything that you have in Firefly Shimmer, governance, for example, you have on the IOTA main. Now, what this technically means is that we need to design this out. But at the moment, how it's looking is that we're still going to have two separate backends because we need the same code to be there, but at a different stage in their lifetime, because the one has been tested more than the other, and we still want, once we have Stardust on IOTA, we still want to be able to add new features to Shimmer without adding them to IOTA, because otherwise the whole point of an incentivized testnet is gone. So we need to carefully design that and integrate basically two backends into one front end. At the moment, I think most of the flows will stay the same, but again, we cannot guarantee this for the futures because it depends on how Shimmer matures and in which direction it evolves.
Who does the graphics for Firefly? They're always like amazing.
It is we have two UX designers who do most of the UX work. It's called Valerie Grappendorf and Yanis Vegis. And we also have, I think it's Sabri Goldberg who does the graphics. And I'm very happy that they do it because the app looks really amazing with them.
Yeah, it always looks like so sleek and futuristic. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, it's so also outside of my knowledge. I'm not really a designer, but I'm really happy that they help us out.
Yeah, because honestly, I know this is an IOTA channel, so we could get accused of being biased, but it is seriously one of the best looking wallets that I've seen, and that's why I don't mind waiting for the releases. Or I know Shimmer is going to be an amazing experience, so I personally don't mind waiting for these things to get released, because I know by that point they're just going to look great.
Yeah, I think so. So maybe I will ask a question for you. Do you have any improvements or any thoughts about how Firefly could improve?
That's a good point. I think it'd be great to have more price info in there. I don't know if that's in the works. I know they've got the track against the US dollar and stuff, but I certainly think more tracking of price, like information in the hood would be quite interesting. And also, you mentioned it earlier, but a fiat on ramp.
By price action, you mean supporting more currencies, or a bit like showing the historical value of your portfolio, for example?
Yeah, like showing the historical value, should I say? Yeah.
Hmm.
And maybe, doing like a different pairs, like a Shimmer IOTA pair or something like that. Obviously, native tokens doesn't have to be against Ethereum or something, but being able to view that in your wallet would be quite cool.
Yeah, because I think in Firefly Shimmer, in Firefly Shimmer, we got rid of the graph.
Yeah, that's right. What was the rationale behind that?
The rationale was that it was difficult to maintain and it didn't provide that much value. We thought that having a list of activities where you see what you've done in the past made more sense, because it was easier to follow, and especially with the huge increase of different type of activities possible that were not possible before, it definitely made sense, I think. And we also needed a place to show all the assets, all the native tokens. So I think this was it was a quick gain to ditch the graph in favor of the asset list and in favor of extending the transaction activities. Also, it was difficult to get correct and accurate information for all the pairs. So we'll see how we approach that in the future.
Could you possibly do like a second tab or something where people can like go into a different mode and it could open up like this HUD mode where there's all these different graphs and stuff like that? That'd be quite cool.
I mean, the beauty of software is that everything is possible.
Mm.
We just have to get the right designs for it and see whether it provides value to the users. But now that you've said this to me, then I can definitely be a supporter for it.
Oh, great. There we go. IOTA Poet team, get behind this. Push it. I'll be pushing it on Twitter. Yeah, maybe even in the future you can have like a chat GPT AI thing where Firefly
Wow,
talks to you.
that would be very interesting. I would love that.
I think we've covered it a little bit, but what can the listeners look forward to over the coming quarter, let's say?
What kind of updates?
Yeah. What sort of updates? What can we see coming out from the Firefly team?
So definitely more comprehensive NFT support. Governance is going to come out. I'm not going to give an ETA on Stardust and IOTA, but that's also in the works, in progress. Then I think the EVM support is going to be great, and we need to work a bit on how we're going to design the whole interface. And in the far future, I hope that identity will also be something that is, well, that is part of IOTA or part of Firefly.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic that we haven't touched upon is the identity. How would that work with Firefly?
Well, we need to see how identity team covers or how they design, in fact, the final interface. But in the end, the identity could be represented by an output, and then you could use Firefly a bit like a password manager where you store certain secrets or certain information, and you store the keys that prove that you are the owner of those secrets and those informations. And then you have a way to prove certain things or aspects about your identity. And then I think a very nice feature would be to design something like login with Firefly, where you use basically the cryptographic secrets stored inside Firefly to prove your identity to an external provider.
Yeah, that would be huge. As Spec Weekly would say, my nipples are getting hard at that. That potential use case, because that would be huge, wouldn't it? Being able to just log in with Firefly.
Yeah, or something also like human readable names, or sending assets to identities instead of users.
Because one use case that I've seen in other projects that I think could be huge and could really help with mainstream adoption is being able to basically, instead of having the addresses with the long number, but having actual names, so you abstract it a little bit out in terms of the naming. Could that potentially be integrated into Firefly?
Yeah, definitely. But this is more the realm of research, and I know it's an active topic now. So I definitely expect it in the coming year to be a bit more fleshed out. And once the details are fleshed out and the implementation starts, then it will be a no-brainer for Firefly to support it, because it's just so much better for user experience. And in the end, Firefly is very committed about user experience.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I imagine, my colleagues at work or my mom or something, I think they would struggle to, they wouldn't struggle, but it would just seem a lot more scary for them if they had to use, copy and paste the address and check the last couple of numbers each time, if we're talking about large numbers. So I think it's fine for now, but I certainly think this is going to be vital for wallets going forward, any wallet in the crypto space, really.
Yeah, I agree. Although I also think that it's not a big hinder of adoption, since if you think about it, bank accounts are the same, right? They're just a bunch of numbers. And in a traditional way of viewing, crypto addresses are similar.
Yeah, I mean that's true. You do have like the IBAN number or something that you need to put in, which is like a very long number, and like your sort code and account numbers and stuff. So yeah, I do that. That's a good comeback to that.
But I still agree 100% with you that we should get rid of long numbers and make it as user friendly as possible. And maybe that's also a big advantages over traditional banking, that you do not need those numbers anymore, because it is secure enough to just use a human readable naming. You do not need the complicated numbers or the
Yeah.
long numbers.
Yeah, I mean that's where it'll evolve to ultimately, won't it? So what's like a normal day like in the Firefly team? Like what's your normal day like?
So my normal day looks like I start coding at around 9. And then most of the time in a the official meetings start in the afternoon, because then most of the team members can join. And then there is a lot of times that we are stuck on something, or that there is a very big feature that needs multiple eyes looking on, and then we jump on a call on a Google Meet and we just program together. Also, often we have to sync up with other teams, such as Waltaris, who does the main work on the back end. And then also part of the whole design process is also requires also involvement of the engineers. So
Yeah.
it's very different. Every day is different. Although my grandma would just say, "Yeah, you're sitting in front of the screen every day," but then, but that's my grandma. For me, it's still very different every day.
But inside the adrenaline's pumping. Um, yeah, because I always think, I mean, with my work, I don't know what it is, but sometimes I get concerned that like I've done something wrong, even though I haven't, but you just overthink stuff. And this is just a general question about coding. I wonder if it's the same with coding, with like so much on the line in terms of money, in the network. Do you ever, overthink things in yourself or get stressed out by your code or anything like that?
We only accept code that has been looked at by other people. So it's always a shared responsibility, but that also means that you have to take care also when you look at others people code, but also when you write your own code. But because of this shared responsibility, I feel less stressed, and I know
Yeah.
that my code has been looked at, so it cannot be that problematic. Another reason is that we rely on a Rust backend where most of the secrets are handled, and it's actually a very small module within the Rust team also, that, or within WildRS, that is responsible for handling these secrets. But of course, we always have to watch out for hacks and bugs.
Yeah, I'm sure. And there's one final question, sorry, for me that just came up there. So, if I understand, there was Go, Shimmer, and Hornet were the two node applications, if you want to call it, if that's the right word. So, has the IF just decided to go forward with Hornet now? Because I'm seeing Go Shimmer mentioned quite a lot as well. I thought it was just Hornet they were using.
So you're right, it's Hornet that you're using. Go Shimmer is the node implementation of the research team that runs IOTA 2.0. So that runs without a coordinator, and it's the real decentralized IOTA. As far as I understood, Go Shimmer is now close to being ported over to Hornet, and they are now the two teams are working together closely to get the whole code base migrated into a production version. Because keep in mind, Go Shimmer, it's a research implementation. They do not always follow software best practices, and definitely not as close as Hornet does. And now the two teams have merged so that they can also merge the node. And once the Go Shimmer and Hornet has been merged, there will be the first release candidate that will come to the testnet first, then to Shimmer, and then to IOTA with the IOTA 2.0 software.
Okay. Yes, it's a real team effort. So did you have much interaction with Hans or any of that team, or are you very separate teams within the IF?
So that's also the main reason why Firefly spun out, right? Because we're developing a product. We're the only team in the IF that develops a product. We're not really concerned with protocol questions. We take the protocol as is and we try to create a nice user experience around it. And also that's an entirely different work than designing a protocol. Although we do have to understand the protocol, we have to work with it, we have to understand what's coming so that we can start thinking about how we're going to integrate it into Firefly, but we're not actively developing.
Yeah, so do you not really need to understand mana or decide to do your work, or do you?
No, we do not have to understand it, although we will have to understand it in the future once we reach the phase that we need to integrate it.
Yeah.
But that is still a lot will happen until then.
Okay, yeah, that's quite far off, but hopefully soon for that first testnet they're planning to do for the core decide and IOTA 2.0, isn't it?
Yeah, and I also think that for us, a lot of the logic will be abstracted by WaltRS because it's in the end, it's a consensus that changes. The whole user experience, the biggest change was with Stardust, because then you had these all new output types appearing and these all new things that you could do in a useful stuff. The average user is not concerned about the consensus algorithm, and they do not see it on Bitcoin, they do not see it on Ethereum. What they see is the way a transaction is sent. And Stardust was a huge effort, but it only touched the usability aspect of IOTA. It didn't touch, well, it also made it more modular and it made it it improved in a lot of ways, the code base. But IOTA 2.0, the main changes there will be consensus related, and then you will have this concept of mana, that's true. But that's not that big of a difference as difference is between Shimmer now and IOTA now.
Yeah, I imagine Stardust was super intense for the whole of the IOTA Foundation.
Yes, it was very intense.
Because you're basically rewriting everything, it sounded like, from the outside.
Yeah, and you had these new outputs that you never had before.
That's like as I was saying, it's like they build the base now, and then you can just add on to that, and that's when the smart contracts come in, NFT support, governance. There's a lot of exciting stuff now to be added on top.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I'm very happy with the progress we're doing, and I'm very happy with the app. I think it's really much better place than it used to be.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to speak to you, and I think I've learned a lot about Firefly and the inner workings of the team. So that's great. Thanks for that.
Thanks a lot for having me. It was a pleasure to speak to you.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll get you back on soon in a year or two's time when smart contracts and all that are working on Firefly.
And thanks a lot for having me, and I hope it will be less than 2 years to have smart contracts within Firefly.
Oh, there we go. ETA, guys. Another ETA within 2 years. Write that in your calendar. Okay, cheers. Bye now.
Bye.
That's all for this week. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.